In this video, we're going to show you how to replace a faulty encoder reader. You may need to replace this if your wheel makes either of these two sounds. This video is applicable to the VL and RK Whisper. The tools you will need to replace the encoder reader are a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, a 3mm Allen wrench, and a pair of diagonal cutters. You will also need 2 plastic zip ties. Turn off and unplug your wheel. Locate the 8 motor cover screws. Remove them using a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. Next, we are going to locate where the encoder reader is. It's plugged into the control board in the second slot and is mounted on the motor bracket underneath the encoder cover. Using the 3mm Allen wrench, unscrew the 4 socket head cap screws that mount the box to the bracket. Very carefully lift the box straight up or out to be sure it does not hit the encoder foil inside. This is the encoder foil. It is very fragile, so make sure not to touch it or bend it, as it will render it unusable. The encoder reader fits between the encoder foil and, like the name implies, reads the encoder foil. This is the part we need to remove and replace. To do so, remove the 2 set screws that mount the encoder reader to the bracket. Then use the diagonal cutters to cut the zip ties that lock it into place on the bracket. Carefully slide the encoder reader out and away from the encoder foil. Next, cut the zip tie that locks the encoder reader harness into place on the control board. Lastly, squeezing the 2 tabs on either end of the plug, pull out the encoder reader from the control board. Here is the old encoder reader. Here's the new one. Be sure not to mix them up by discarding the old one. To install the new encoder reader, place it on the deck of the bracket and carefully slide it in between the encoder foil. Take special care not to hit the foil with either your fingers or the encoder reader. From the top looking down, the center dot on the encoder reader must hover above the patterned band on the foil. Holding the encoder reader down, replace the socket head cap screws to mount the reader back in place. Plug the encoder reader into the control board. Notice that the plug is keyed, so it can only go in its specific spot on the control board and its specific orientation. Plug the wheel back in and turn it on. Now press the foot pedal to test that the new encoder reader works. You will know if it's working properly if your wheel is spinning evenly and quietly. Carefully place the lid back on again, making sure not to touch the encoder foil. Replace all 4 socket head cap screws. Use a zip tie to secure the harness in place on both the motor bracket as well as on the control board, while also capturing the green ground wire. Lastly, replace the motor cover and all 8 motor cover screws.